we got one little error. Let me edit this real quick. Save changes. I go live here. All right, perfect. We're live everywhere. Welcome to another Lunch and Learn with Purse Strings. My name is Maggie Nielsen. I'm a partner here at Purse Strings, and we do these lives to get some great education, knowledge, skill out into our community, but also to show off our Purse Strings approved professionals. These are professionals who are vetted and approved by Purse Strings. They really focus on serving the female market. We call them our Purse Strings approved professionals, and Rebecca is one of them. And so we're so excited to have her on today to kind of talk about her client and how she helped them go from bouncing checks to going to Europe twice a year and managing their finances and this amazing journey that she kind of took them on. So I'm excited to dive into this conversation today. But before we jump in, Rebecca, could you give us a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. So I'm Rebecca Frohlich. I'm a certified financial planner with Fairway Asset Management. I've been in the business for over 20 years. I started in operations and then I switched over. I like dealing with clients too much. I liked helping them on their journey and achieving their goals. So I switched over and became a CFP, and we really focus on that whole financial plan, dealing with all the ins and outs of your daily finances and setting those goals to create that path then to achieve those goals. So that's kind of how we do. I do have a specialty. I love working with women in transition. So anyone, new moms, recently married, divorced, and even widows. I love widows. They're the sweetest. So that's kind of like the little niche I like to work with women for sure.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to have you on today and share your expertise. And anyone tuning in live, if you have questions along the way, throw them in the chat. And if you're watching a replay, you can still throw them in the comments and we'll work on getting back to those. But I love how you kind of, in your explanation of what you do, you focus that it's more on the sometimes the day-to-day nuance and finances. Because that's the most complex part are some of these foundations or, those different things, because you have to be so on top of it day to day. It's not that long year plan. So when we talk about this married couple today, I'm just going to call them Bill and Jane because that's just what's coming out right now.
Perfect.
But, what was the impetus, for Bill and Jane to come and meet with you? What was that thing that was like, oh, we need to go get some professional help here?
So it really wasn't even reaching out to me to deal with the issue they were having. It was, he's a physician and the hospital had kind of sold them off to another group to manage them for their day-to-day, like just administrative side. They were still contracted with the hospital. And so he had a 401k rollover, and one of the other guys in his group was a client of ours. So he's like, hey, go see these guys. So they came to us just for basically a 401k rollover and to help them with the investments. But then as we ventured down that whole get to know you meeting, the basic meeting, all these other things started to come out. And I'm like, hold on, we're going to need to take a step back and let's start from the beginning and deal with some of these other issues. Yes, let's deal with the 401k rollover, but we need to figure out this day to day, because you could tell something was bugging them. And it really came out in that first initial fact finding meeting.
And so I know a lot of professionals were like, awesome, we'll roll over that 401k and we will call it a day. But you're like, no, we've got some more work to do here. And so what are some of those, things that came up where almost like red flags where you're like, we have a little bit more work to do here than just rolling over a 401k?
Well, we just started diving into just the basics of their family. They have 4 kids.
Wow.
And busy mom. They're constantly going. And then the other thing they threw out was they're building their dream home, this $1 million home, pool and everything, which fabulous that they're there. But then she's like, but we're running into some snags with that. And now I don't know if we can continue contributing to the 403Bs, or not the 403Bs, I apologize, the college savings plans and all that. Because she's like, we're kind of struggling right now with just the bills. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what do you mean? Dive into that a little more. She's like, well, we've kind of already cleaned out a lot of the liquid assets that we already had, meaning savings accounts and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, why are we cleaning out savings? What's going on? And I'm like, are you budgeting? Are you staying on top of it? And she's like, there's just various things coming out, like just daily expensive tuition for the kids, and then miscellaneous little things with the house. Like she's already shopping for all the new furnishings and all that. So it was just taking a step back to realize, okay, why?
Yeah.
We need to get a handle on this to deal with it all.
Yeah. And so it's amazing because I think in this example, you said he earns close to like $600,000 a year.
Yep.
And so it's not like they're not making enough money. It's
Correct.
either they're living beyond the means or they just don't know
Correct.
where it's going. And I can imagine with 4 kids and
Mm-hmm.
dance and camps and everything else, money is going out the window. And
Right.
building a house, is a lot of work too.
Yeah.
So where do you kind of get started when you're managing all these different things, the day to day, the building the house, all these different things? Where do you get started on that?
So we've initially, in the very first meeting, I gave them homework when they left. And so I said, the first thing you need to do is contact your bank. And why don't you have a line of credit on your checking account? And why don't you have overdraft protection? You would think somebody making $600,000, very smart people, that they should already have all that. They didn't.
Is this something
So
you normally have to ask for or?
no, normally it's not. I don't necessarily discuss that early on. It might come
Mhm.
up down the road if we're doing more of a deeper dive into some of those accounts, but not on
Yeah.
that first meeting. I usually don't dive that far because we usually do more of a complete asset review like the second or third meeting. It's not necessarily in that first meeting. But
Mhm.
when they were saying they're bouncing checks, okay, your first easiest way to cut out any wasted money is overdraft fees, right? I mean, some of them
Mhm.
are 50, 60, $80 a pop.
Yep.
And if you're having multiples, I'm
Yeah.
like, line of credit, let's get this going right now. So she did go do that right away. But then afterwards, I also said, we need to do a budget. I know you guys make a lot of money, but if your inflows and outflows are not matching, if your
Mhm.
outflows are so much more, we need to get back to the basics of a budget. And I'm a big budget person. I do a budget. I've talked to other people in my life, just friends, family, all of them into a budget. You have to have an idea of the ins and outs before you can even contemplate investing and your goals for the future. You have to
Yeah.
have a grasp on that. And then we kind of whittled through and took some things out. The bigger kicker for where we really found some stuff was when we got to the asset review, because they did have a lot of assets. They had most of their risk mitigated in their life, but the way it was probably not the best.
Mm.
So they had a number of life insurance policies, but they were whole life policies with a lot of added on riders that didn't fit this family. It's not like they had an extreme amount of weird stuff that they needed to plan for in the future. He had a
Right.
great job. He had some insurance and coverage through work. So we dialed back some of those riders, but it was the expense that they were paying for the whole life plus the underinsured for his life insurance.
Mm.
So that's kind of where we really found some great opportunities for them to save money and adjust it over to start building back up that savings account and everything. We had already taken care of, okay, we whittled through the budget, we picked through the stuff, got them on the right payment plan so that everything was being paid. No more bounce
Mhm.
checks and everything. But then we had to address the fact that they had drained most of their emergency savings.
Yeah.
So now we have to build up those savings accounts because you guys do have a lot of expenses, right? So we did that, but once we actually ended up deciding to change a couple of the whole life policies. There's one on him and one on her, and we did
Okay.
a reduced paid up for those. So we removed those premiums altogether from their expenses for the year.
And so, can you explain a little bit more like what that means? Let's say if somebody has a policy, like, can you just close it at any time, or like, how does that kind of work?
Sure. So a whole life policy, you can close it out at any time for the most part. However, a whole life policy has like a cash value to it.
Okay.
versus like a term policy where the only thing you're getting in a term policy is the death benefit. That's all there
Got it.
is to it. So the whole life policy, it's kind of a combination of an investment in life insurance in one vehicle. It's a great fit for a lot of people, but not everyone.
Right.
Especially this couple, because in the long run, he earns so much money that between their property and their 401ks and their investment accounts, they have more than enough outside investments. It's just we didn't want to take loans from the 401k to start paying monthly bills. That's not what a 401k loan's for, right?
Right.
So that money was all out of the picture. IRAs, same thing. You're paying penalties. We're not going to cash out an IRA and pay more taxes and more penalties because you're already in the highest tax bracket.
Right.
So that's why the life insurance policies really were the great spot to look. Now, he was also extremely underinsured. He only had, if I remember correctly, it was right around $1 million.
Wow. Yeah, that's not much, especially
That's
when you're
not much.
earning 600 a year.
Well, and then we had talked about their goals. They wanted to cover the mortgage. They wanted to put the kids through school, and he even still had some student loan debt, which
Lines up.
isn't really a bad thing because for him being a physician, he had such low interest rates on the student loans.
Right.
So we didn't have to make that a high priority to begin with. It is now, late years later. So, but when we transitioned those policies, we then went and we actually got him a $10 million term policy.
Wow.
Because we figured, okay, we need to take and get you insurance for between 10 and 15 years of your life. You know, that would give the wife enough opportunity to get the kids through school and get them out of the house. And then she could still live off the retirement assets if she needed to, if something happened to him.
Right.
So we did go ahead and we ended up getting him, I want to say he now has right around $12 million worth of life insurance between his employer life insurance, the term policy, and the existing whole life that we did as a reduced paid up. I'll go back to the reduced paid up. I didn't finish that question. Sorry.
No worries.
The reduced paid up is basically you're taking whatever cash value is it, and you're buying the death benefit, and that money will then pay all those premiums. They calculate it in, so then there's no more payments on that.
Okay. Interesting.
Which works out great because he was paying, I want to say he was paying something like $18,000 a year between his policy and his wife's policy.
Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense to keep doing that.
And so the other, bringing in the wife's policy, she is a stay-at-home mom, I know, and, 4 kids. So that's a lot of work to do. But there's always that argument out there, Rebecca, she's not bringing in a dime. Why do we insure a stay-at-home mom?
Well, when they're younger, for sure, daycare alone for 4 kids. And granted, they wouldn't all have been in daycare at the same time, but you still can be spending $2,000 to $3,000 a month, if not more, on daycare alone. I mean, he's a physician, so he's working 50 hours a week. He doesn't have time to pick up the kids from every place and run them around, get into activities. So moms are so undervalued sometimes that we need to ensure what would be the replacement cost to have somebody do for us everything our moms do. They're running the kids around, they're taking care of them, they're staying home with them. And then there's just all those other tasks. Who's cleaning the house? Maybe you have a house cleaner, great, but there's day-to-day cleaning. The housekeeper's only coming once every week or once every 2 weeks. So there's the day-to-day cleaning, there's the grocery shopping, there's the cooking, who's getting them up, who's getting them to school, who's getting them to bed, all that stuff. So there's so many pieces that go into that. And even, I mean, if you think about it, like right now with Christmas coming up,
the planning,
think of everything the moms are doing.
The gifts, the wrapping, everything.
Yeah. The doctor, he's not, or the breadwinner. And I keep saying he and she, the moms. It could go either way. There's men and women, of course, that are the stay-at-home parent that's carrying that weight while the other parents out there carrying the financial weight. So it's very important to figure out, okay, what would it cost? And for how many years would we need to do that?
Right.
I mean, you really need it till at least 18, and in most cases longer.
We always need our moms.
Correct, right? So you need to have that financial security for the one at home taking care of all that heavy lifting.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always something we like to touch on as,
Mhm.
a lot of stay-at-home moms are not insured or
Mhm.
underinsured and their job is, yeah, super just priceless, but
Yeah,
it is a pretty much like a $250,000 job once you add it up,
correct. Yeah.
which is wild.
Mhm.
And so they were able to get the budget down. They were able to, figure
Mhm.
out their life insurance, get that protected, start building that emergency fund. So
Mhm.
what were kind of the next steps after that?
So then it was just touching on the rest of their assets and making sure that we had their goals in force. So we
Hmm.
have all the risk mitigated now, but we saved $10,000, I think it was, in premiums. And so we
Wow.
were able to start building up that savings account pretty darn quickly. So we
Yeah.
got that all done. And from there, we're maxing out 4 college plans a year now. We're maxing out his 401k plan. And we're just moving everything forward. The last time I met with them this year, the HELOC was paid off, the student loans were
Wow.
paid off.
Wow. That's
And
amazing.
they're down to, I want to say the mortgage was right around $400,000 now.
Wow.
So they're there. And the other part was she's originally from Europe. And so
Mm,
they got to the point where they could go back to their twice a year trips to see the family. So she
that's
takes all 4 kids
awesome.
by herself every summer for about a month.
God bless.
Well, most of them are older now. They did have one
Okay.
graduate from high school last year.
Awesome. And
So,
so, yeah, there was so much progress made there. And even that $10,000 savings and premiums, like just highlighting that as you helping them, you paid for your own services,
correct.
finding that money, which I always like to pull out is because people are always like, how do I pay for this? Or, is it
Hmm.
worth the investment and all these different things? And besides actually fully being covered and not bouncing checks and sleeping well at night, you saved them that money that,
Hmm.
would be back invested to you.
Correct.
And so it's so many wins all the way around the board.
Hmm.
Um, and then, so you said their oldest son graduated high school, right?
Hmm. Yep.
And so was he part of any of these financial conversations? Was
Oh,
he
yeah.
intrigued by any of this?
Yep, absolutely. In fact, was it last year? It might have been the year before. He got a part-time job, as a lot of, college kids
Yep.
do, and he wanted to open an account. So she's like, "Can I just bring him in to talk?" And I was like, "Absolutely." So he came in and we talked through it. We didn't open an account with us just because he just needs a basic account. So I'm like,
Yep.
"Here's the thing, you're going to want to do a Roth, and you're going to
Hmm.
want to open it at one of the online brokerage firms and everything. And these are the assets to look at. These are the things to kind of look at." And I explained to him what they all were.
Hmm.
So, yes, very much he was very interested in it. And I love that.
That's awesome. I mean, that's gonna be great just for knowing your finances, but also
Mhm.
once you're 65, you're gonna be like, man, all that money and that compounding interest by then is unreal.
I know. Yeah. But then we also, for them as a family, we got to the point because they did have to freeze the contributions into 529 plans for a short time, just so we could get
Yeah.
their money back on track. So we discussed, they're at a point right now where he got a college scholarship. And so they
Awesome.
are actually paying out of pocket versus pulling money out of his 529 plan, because then if they need to, they can roll that money to the other kids if they need it.
Mm,
And this way, right
definitely.
now, they're in a spot, they're maxing out all these other things, they're hitting their goals, they're saving a lot. So why not pay out of pocket for it
Yeah.
versus dip in? Yeah.
And so that's one of the asterisks, I guess, with the
Hmm.
529 plan is it's very specific what you could use it for, correct? It's
Correct.
just
Yes.
student, I don't know. I know there's very specific ways. And so it makes sense to kind of roll it over to another kid or something
Hmm.
like that. It's not money you can just take out and start using for anything that your heart
Correct.
desires.
Yeah. 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 So, and they have, I mean, like I said, they have plenty. They're doing great financially and everything. And he's got a good 10, 15 years to work yet.
Yeah.
So they'll be fine.
And so going back to the beginning real quick,
Mhm.
and I know one of the big things was both of them looking at their budget together. And so what are some ways like if, people have not been doing much of that, to start looking at your budget, especially with your partner or that person who's also spending some of the money and all these different things. What's the best way to go about that? I just think with 4 kids, there's must be money coming out everywhere.
There is. It's that typical. You just have to take it almost item by item and just have deep conversations about where is our money going. Sometimes it's shocking because, like, yes, she had 4 kids. They were running a lot, but that also meant that they were spending a lot of money on food.
Yep.
And it's as simple as throw together sandwiches. Anything's better than going to McDonald's 5 nights a week or any of those other places. So there's little things like that. But I think it's just a heart to heart. You have to have a conversation as a family and say, where do we value our money and what are we going to put the emphasis on?
Yeah.
If her having her coffee every morning via Starbucks was her thing, continue that. But let's look at where are the other places we can.
We need mom happy every morning.
Correct.
So she gets the coffee. But yeah, there are some other things that you can look at. And I appreciate that you share, if you're earning $600,000, it still might just be making a meal at home. Those things, these foundations never change.
Yeah.
And so it's just understanding, like, this is why the meal prep is so important on Sunday. And if I don't get it done, this is what the whole week leads to, or whatever it may be. And
it's just easy to have those conversations, like you said, with the children in the whole process too, because they're like, well, why can't we have McDonald's today? And I'd be like, well, would you rather, I think we still want to go to Europe this year. We're going to eat at home 3 nights a week so that we can afford to go to Europe.
Right. Which is, you're like, well, this one time it's only, only so much. How is that going to add up to Europe? But it always does.
Especially for a family of 6.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I only have a household of 2 right now. So you do that calculation. What's the expense of eating out? Even McDonald's is probably $100 ticket.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
For a family of 6.
Working with this couple, what were like how often did you meet kind of at the beginning? And then what does that relationship look like now? How often do you kind of connect or meet?
So in the beginning, I was meeting with the wife every single month for like 6 months straight. It was a monthly check-in. We just made that a priority because we had little things that we wanted to keep checking up on. And that's one of those, it's really building that relationship to let them know, I'm your partner in this. So we need to be in contact till we get you on track. And she would come in. Now he was busy. So he didn't need to be there for every meeting.
Right.
But when we got more into the nitty gritty of making a few changes to the assets, he was of course there. So for the first 6 months, we met once a month. I think we met 3 weeks in a row when they first started, to be honest. Just having those little conversations to get everything in order. But then afterwards, now we meet twice a year. She'll usually come in the second time, just her, but he does come in and we do a complete review just because I want to stay up on the 401k, how is our allocation and everything going, and then just all the other accounts. Unfortunately, they make too much money that we can't do an account for her, a retirement account.
Oh, like a spousal IRA?
Correct. Yeah. So we do. I mean, they have their trust account. We did finally get through the trust in the last couple of years and get all that done.
Also, super important parts. Super important parts.
Yeah. So now, like I said, it's twice a year, and usually one of the times it's just her.
I like that you kind of show that at the beginning it is a bit more work. We are really working on it. It could be weekly or every month, but it's also great having that accountability partner, or it's like, Rebecca's going to call me. I do need to look at the budget. Like, I can't keep avoiding it. Not like we don't love calls from Rebecca, but she's going to ask. And so it's kind of like, all right, I need to do the thing. But after 6 months, you're like, all right, I get to do the thing. I know it's not going to be as scary or as daunting or as confusing at that point.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I always try to preface everybody with, it's a process. Yeah. We're going to do some stuff in the beginning, and then there's stuff that we can push off. Let's prioritize, but it's a process.
Definitely. And so if anyone's listening to this and want to, start a conversation with you or, see if you'd be a good fit, what's kind of that process? What does that look like?
You can reach out to me many ways. You can reach out through the website, email, phone, all of that kind of stuff. but it's really having an initial conversation, phone, virtual, in person, how whatever works for you. But it's a first conversation to really kind of feel, do we jive? Do we get each
Mm.
other? Is there a connection there? I feel like finance is such a personal item that if you don't have a connection with that person, it's going to just not be it's not going to be a great experience for you. And we want this to be a great experience. Finance in itself, especially when you're struggling getting it in order, or you're just having a rough time with it right now, you need somebody that you can trust, that you really feel like they're on your side. So I think the first, and I've said that to a lot of people, I'm like, if I'm not the right fit, find somebody who is.
Yeah.
You need
I'm
that
not
right.
offended, but we all
Yeah.
love different people. Sometimes people connect from their alma mater, or they
Hmm.
were in the same sorority, or they both
Right.
have daughters in fourth grade. Like, you never know what might be that reason that you really
Yeah.
connect.
Well, and some people may like just the very simple business type relationship. And I'm more of a touchy feely person. I want to know more about you.
Definitely.
So, yeah. But then
Awesome.
once we figure out if it's a good fit, then we just move forward.
All right, cool, cool. So yeah, I appreciate you coming on and sharing all this great information about how you
Yeah.
really helped your clients go from balancing these checks to getting everyone invested and paying for college now, and even getting the kids invested. That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, feel free to reach out to Rebecca. Her email's been going through the bottom. She's also a Purse Strings approved professional, so you could reach out to her off our site, pursestrings.co. But always my biggest tip is just get started. Get that conversation open, book that call just for 20 minutes, and just get started. That's the best thing that you can do.
I agree.
So thank you again, Rebecca, for coming on today, and we'll talk to everyone again soon.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.